Hello and welcome to Today in Brevard Sports. I'm Lee Nessel.
And I'm Brian McCallum.
Thank you for joining us. This show is going to be a lot of fun for us because we get to share with you the news and people involved with local sports. We'll highlight the accomplishments of our local colleges, check in on youth sports and high schools, give you a heads up on the surf conditions for the weekend, and introduce you to interesting sports issues and personalities in our community. First, we visit a very well-known athlete who certainly has left his mark in our community. Xavier Carter graduated Palm Bay High School in 2004 with blazing track speed, and he's been moving fast ever since. We catch up with him at his new training site very close to home, Disney's Wide World of Sports. He is getting in competition shape for the Track and Field World Championships in Germany this summer.
Wednesdays are usually the more intense days, Wednesday and Fridays, but Monday, Tuesday, and Thursdays are pretty much on speed workout. You try to work on the speed and endurance.
You'd have to get another 1/10 of a second off for 30 meters to be right down on the world record pace. That's why we time this stuff. So take the guesswork out of this, you know what I'm saying?
A couple of months, I'm just trying to stay healthy and getting top peak shape, you know, for the world trials coming up. So that's what I'm shooting for, and just to stay healthy and you know, get good progress through these meets and practices coming up.
I think it's pretty well known and documented that he is one of the elite, blessed few in terms of the events he runs. He's certainly one of the best in the world, and with a little bit of luck could become the best in the world. Right now we're trying to work on two things with Gary Evans, who was his high school coach and club coach. We're trying to maintain his innate speed and then try to develop and enhance his speed endurance and strength endurance.
So you like being closer to home?
Yeah, it's much more convenience than it would be if I was 2 hours, 3 hours away, or even out of the state. 45 minutes away from home. You know, moms can come down and see me, or I can go home, either or. So it works out well.
That's Fastly, and I know he's getting close to being ready for international competition because I've been training with him and he can almost catch me now.
That's impressive, Brian.
If you want to see some of the future stars, there are people coming up who will follow in Xavier's footsteps and give you kind of a local flavor. There's track and field going on. It's entering the postseason now. There are some guys and girls competing around Brevard County this week and in the coming weeks. Merritt Island's Mike Vaney is somebody you might want to watch. He has the state's best pole vault for a boy this season. He cleared 15 feet 9 inches at the Cape Coast Conference meet a few weeks ago at Astronaut High School, and he'll be competing in a Class 3A regional meet at Merritt Island on Wednesday afternoon. If you want to watch one of the best girls pole vaulters in the state, Lindsay Enders of Holy Trinity has one of the best girls' heights at 11 feet 6 inches, and she'll be at the FHSAA Class 1A state championship on Friday in Winter Park. It is playoff time in Brevard County, and softball has the stage this week, but things will change a little bit next week. District baseball tournaments will take over. Palm Bay, Merritt Island, Melbourne Central Catholic, and Merritt Island Christian will all have district tournaments on their campus next week. You can check Florida Today and FloridaToday.com for all those schedules.
Local college athletic teams are grabbing headlines in the midst of their spring seasons as well. Florida Tech sophomore Randall Thompson of Orlando has been named the Sunshine State Conference Pitcher of the Week. Thompson pitched 7 innings of one-hit scoreless baseball as Tech beat Eckerd 1-0. He struck out 7, walked 2, and threw 78 pitches. Florida Tech Women's Varsity 8 is the Sunshine State Conference Boat of the Week after winning the Southern Intercollegiate Rowing Association Petty Final in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. Team members are Sarah Vines, Jennifer Johnson, Amberly Rolls-Lawson, Bayside High graduate Becky Worley, Mist Eliastader, Ashley Sicard, Guinevere Shaw, Melissa Piles, and Julie Maubrey. Hopefully I got all those pronounced correctly.
I think you did, actually.
Thank you. Moving from the water to the links, Cocoa Beach's Lance Gillett paced Florida Tech with a 2-day total 220 to tie for 14th as the Panthers finished 6th in the Sunshine State Conference Golf Tournament. Tech's women finished 8th, led by Satellite Beach's Daniela Icabelli, who tied for 12th at 232. Brevard Community College's men's golf team won the District 5 championship on Tuesday in Alabama. The Titans beat Central Alabama Community College by 5 strokes. It was BCC's 3rd straight district title. These guys really ruling the links. Next up for the golf team is the NJCAA Division I National Championship in May in Huntsville, Alabama. The BCC baseball team clinched the final playoff spot in the Southern Conference tournament by defeating Indian River State College 4-1. Tori Eki pitched a complete game, striking out 10 hitters and walking 1. Now we're going to stick with the baseball theme and introduce you to a man with a truly unique story. Florida Today's Peter Kerasotis visited Jimmy Palermo at his Merritt Island home to bring us the tales of his days as a Major League bat boy in St. Louis.
88-year-old Jimmy Palermo has a rich history in baseball, growing up in St. Louis, working in his parents' confectionery store, and then becoming a mascot, a bat boy, and then a clubhouse attendant for the St. Louis Browns, and also the St. Louis Cardinals were the team there at Sportsman's Park, where the tavern that he later operated for many years across the street from Sportsman's Park. So during that time, he got to know a lot of baseball players, interacting with Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig and Ted Williams. And then when he worked in his tavern, he got many historical bats that were brought over to him by a friend of his, including the bat that Stan Musial used to hit 5 home runs in one day over a doubleheader, and many other bats that he and his family now have. And some of them are going to be on display with the Cincinnati Reds all throughout this summer. Hank Aaron's bat, Willie Mays' bat, several other bats as well.
My mother and father had moved to Spring and Sullivan, across the street from the old Sportsman's Park. And a lot of the ball players used to come in and buy their chewing tobacco and stuff, and chewing gums and cigars and things like that.
Jimmy Palermo's association with the St. Louis Browns started when he was just a 5-6-year-old boy, when he was working in his parents' confectionery store, and one of the players took him over to be an assistant to the bat boy, which was called the mascot. The Browns had been on a losing streak. They won that day. So the manager asked that Jimmy come back, and from there started a relationship with the Browns that lasted until he was 18 years old.
The bat boy was about 15 or 16 years old at the time. Well, when he got too old to be a bat boy, they made me the bat boy. I became the big wheel. So that's how I became the bat boy of the Browns.
As a young boy, Jimmy Palermo, working in the clubhouse for the St. Louis Browns, was asked to go to the visiting clubhouse and run an errand. Well, the visiting clubhouse was the New York Yankees, and it was the first time that he met Babe Ruth, did a favor for him, a favor that the Babe never forgot.
So I went down the steps, went into the visiting clubhouse, and who was sitting there at his locker was Babe Ruth. So he says, I want you to go upstairs and see if Tommy's got a bone up there for my bat. So I ran up and I asked Tommy Brown, I says, Tommy, I need a bone. He says, you need a bone? What kind of bone? He says, Babe Ruth wants a bone for his bats. Oh, he says, I know the bone you need. What they do with the bone, they put him down and harden the bat up and knock these seams down. So I gave it to the Babe, and there he was, boning his bats. He says, thanks for the bone. And when he says, now, you reach up in that locker and you get yourself $1 for helping me.
One of Jimmy Palermo's favorite players that he got to know through the years of working in the clubhouse was Lou Gehrig.
Lou Gehrig, God bless him, I love that man as if he was my best uncle. I knew him since I was a little boy until I became property manager of the Browns, and I had the visiting clubhouse. And he was called the Iron Man. And this one day when he came in to the visiting clubhouse, I was distributing all the stuff that the ball players needed, and here he came, and he was just a ghost of himself. And he tried to play that game, but he couldn't go through the whole game. Came in with the rest of the guys, took a shower, sat down in front of his locker, and he couldn't even hardly dress himself. Finally, he says, Jimmy, he says, he was putting his socks on. He said, will you put my socks and my shoes on? And I damn near cried. I says, okay, and I helped him. I put his shoes on. He says, you're going to have to tie them for me too, because I can't do that. So all the other ball players had already gone. They were going to Philadelphia. And I had to get Ed Moran, who was the head of the black and white taxi cab that did all of the So I says, can you hold up a cab for Lou Gehrig? He says, yeah, I can do that. So I helped him go to the taxi cab, and he could hardly walk. And got to the cab, helped him in the cab, said goodbye to him, and I damn near cried because he was such a dear friend, and that was the last time I ever saw him. And it wasn't long after that, when he went to Philadelphia, he couldn't play, and he died not too many years after that. I was a mascot, I was the bat boy, I was the clubhouse boy. I umpired for almost 4 years professionally in the minor leagues. Came home, the Western League, I thought the Western League was going to take my option up when I come back out of the wars. But instead I went into the tavern business because my father had a heart attack, and my brother Joe asked me if I would come in with him, and I did. I ran the one right across the street from the old Sportsman's Park.
Jimmy Palermo's rich history with the game of baseball reaches all the way back to some of the greatest names in the game: Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, Ted Williams. His brother-in-law, his wife's sister's husband, is Yogi Berra, also a St. Louis native. So many stories. 88-year-old Jim Palermo remembers them all and enjoys sharing them.
Fantastic story, what Peter Kerasotis always delivers. Peter joins us here in the studio now. Peter, I'm trying to think if the Washington franchise would have been around back when he was parading around the locker rooms in St. Louis. I'm thinking, somebody now, the idea of meeting some of those players is fantastic. But can you imagine a boy of his age walking in and there's Babe Ruth sitting there? And You've got some other stories. We were both out at the Nationals Park this spring covering spring training, and not necessarily a great start for the Nationals, is it?
No, Washington has waited a long time to get a franchise back, and now that they finally have a franchise in Washington, it's kind of abysmal, like it's been throughout the history of baseball in the capital city. So now we look at our Washington Nationals, who spring train every year here, off to another horrible start in Major League Baseball. They had a worse attendance the other night. Their worst attendance, 12,000 plus fans, actually 12,473. And it's really becoming a national embarrassment that they're not able to draw fans. They got a new ballpark last year, and wanting to make a big splash with their new ballpark, they had the worst record in baseball. And then this spring, controversy. Jim Bowden, their general manager, is forced to resign under some pressure that they were skimming money off the signing bonuses of Caribbean players, especially players from the Dominican Republic. And now the latest embarrassment for the franchise is that just the other night they were playing a game against the Florida Marlins, and several of the players are wearing jerseys with Nationals misspelled across the front of it. Instead of Nationals, it's Natinals. They forgot the O. So that's getting a lot of play around the country. It's becoming quite the punchline that the Nationals are the worst franchise in baseball. And the sad part is that when we were getting the Nationals, here in Brevard County, and we were worrying about what was going to happen after the Montreal Expos left, and then we got the Nationals, we thought we were going to get the well-heeled Washington crowd coming down to Brevard County, that we were going to get a franchise on the upswing. Well, they're not even getting the well-heeled Washington crowd in Washington, and we're not getting them here. We're getting the worst franchise in baseball. That's becoming somewhat of an embarrassment. So that's sad to see. Hopefully they'll start turning things around. They just signed Ryan Zimmerman, their third baseman, to a 5-year, $45 million contract to be the cornerstone of their franchise. Hopefully they can build on that and some good things can happen.
I thought they brought in Adam Dunn to replace some of that lost O. Apparently that's not working out.
Not working out either.
Another story that has a local angle. I'm going to miss John Madden next football season as soon as baseball starts winding down, but you know somebody who brings a local angle to this story.
Yeah, the local angle here is Chris Collinsworth, and Chris Collinsworth, Astronaut High graduated in 1977. His father, Abe Collinsworth, was the first principal at Astronaut High School, a school superintendent here in Brevard County for many years. And I've known Chris for a long, long time, and it kind of strikes me sometimes, like for instance, when the news happened the other day that John Madden, the iconic, legendary John Madden, is retiring, will no longer be a color analyst. He's worked for 4 different networks, the last one NBC with Al Michaels on Sunday Night Football. And when people said, well, Chris Collinsworth is replacing him, people who don't know Chris were commenting to me, well, he seems so arrogant, he seems so this, kind of negative comments. Chris is one of the nicest guys, and I often tell people that what you kind of see sometimes on TV or what you read from a columnist is often an alter ego, and that seems to be the case with Chris. He's very pointed in his commentary, sometimes hard-hitting and critical, but he is one of the nicest, down-to-earth, humblest guys. And I was kind of struck with an email that I got from him asking if he would do an interview, and he emails me back. He says, "Hi, Peter, I will do something later in the week. I really want the focus to be on John and not me for a little while. I hope you understand, CC, Chris Collinsworth." So yes, I do understand, and he's going to be replacing the iconic John Madden. I will catch up with him and write something shortly. And he's replacing a legend because John Madden did so many innovative things. He was the first guy to go to practices and talk to teams and be able to kind of get some insight prior to the game. Of course, the innovative things he did in the booth with regards to using state-of-the-art graphics, educated viewers while entertaining them. I think Chris is a worthy successor. He's very knowledgeable, played in the NFL. He's very well-spoken. And I think Chris has earned this right now to replace John Madden. I'm really looking forward to see how he does that. I think it's going to be a success.
It'll be interesting to see a guy from Astronaut High School on, I guess now, Sunday Night Football, Chris Collinsworth. I'm a Steelers fan, so I grew up not necessarily a great big Chris Collinsworth fan, but he brings us a local touch to national football these days. Thanks, Peter.
Thank you, Peter, for always enlightening us. We look forward to what you have to say again next week. The weekend is just about upon us, so do you have plans yet? If you'd like to hit the waves, let's see what local surf forecaster Bob Freeman has to say about the upcoming surf.
Okay, thanks. So let's get right to it. This weekend we'll have plenty of surf in the 2 to 3 foot range on Saturday, 3 to 4 foot range on Sunday. We will have a lot of strong winds though out of the east, pushing in a whole new swell for us. This will be a long fetch ground swell with a lot of wind chop on top of it, creating very choppy conditions. And the swell direction that we'll have will be a little more out of the southeast. This will be the very first southeast swell of the year. Will be very choppy, will be very windy. Size should be about the same at all the breaks up and down Brevard County's coast. Again, I'm estimating 2 to 3 feet on Saturday, building to even larger sets later in the day, and bigger on Sunday. We have a morning low tide, gives us a nice incoming high tide push throughout the day. So if it doesn't look very good early in the morning, be sure and check it again after lunchtime because it will be filling in, tides running about 3 feet above normal. So get out there, have a good time this weekend. This is Bob Freeman for Florida Today.
If you don't want to get wet yourself this weekend, but maybe you like watching others surf, you can catch local surfer Mikey DeTemple's 42-minute surf film, Picturesque. It will be shown tonight at sunset at Decine Diego's restaurant in Satellite Beach.
That's what I'm all about, is watching other people do things. And if you want to watch some other people play softball, there are 2 district championships games tonight. One's hosted by Covenant Christian at 4 o'clock at Fred Lee Park, involving some local Class 1A schools. The other's at 7 o'clock at Bayside High, featuring regional 5A teams. Either Satellite or Bayside will be in that game.
And if you're in football withdrawal, we don't have NFL or high school, college going on yet, you can catch some local football action as the Brevard Warriors host the Orange County Falcons at Mo Stradley Park in Cocoa. It's round 2 of playoffs for them. Our local minor league football team has done really well this year. It's their first year in existence and they only have 1 loss. The game kicks off at 7 p.m. Last weekend, some of the fastest paced events on water made wakes on the C-54 Canal in Fellsmere. I really wanted to get down there. I couldn't make it, but those of you who went probably had quite a show. It was the Hydro Drag Spring Nationals. It was the first time a jet ski was officially documented going faster than 100 miles an hour. I don't know about you. I don't think I've ever got my car over 100 miles an hour, but I can't imagine doing that on water. Not officially. Right, not officially have I gone 100 miles an hour. Late this afternoon and continuing tomorrow morning, the action will be a little bit more placid on the water, though. The same canal in Fellsmere will host the Sunshine State Conference Women's Rowing Championships. Florida Tech University will host Barry, Nova, Southeastern, Rollins, and Tampa. Well, thank you for joining us for this week today in Brevard Sports. We hope you enjoyed meeting some of the local personalities in our sports community, and we hope we gave you some interesting things to go do this weekend. We'll see you next week.
See you next week.